This is Pro Wrestling INDIEstrated, a love letter to independent wrestling from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I am one of your hosts, Kevin McElvaney, editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. With me, as always, the Good Witch, the Conduit of Karma, the Divine Darling. I do not remember the fourth one, Kaia McKenna. Kaia, how's it going? What's the fourth one?
I don't know. Let's keep it at 3 because three is like the magic number when it comes to witchery. Is you want things in sets of 3s. Things come back threefold. You always want to have 3 ingredients for a spell. Let's keep it at 3. 3 is good.
In the spirit of Schoolhouse Rock, 3 being the magic number.
It is.
We proceed. So we're doing another regional episode here today. We did the UK. We've done the West Coast. Why are we going all the way to Japan? Why did we record this episode with these time differences? What was the impetus for that?
Well, when you really think about it, there are not many countries that have a stronghold in professional wrestling quite like Japan does. I'm sure we've all had the experience when we're talking about something historically in wrestling, or like where something originated, where a style came from, or where a specific move came from, or where someone's move set was influenced. And the answer 9 times out of 10 is either Mexico or Japan. So I think that we have to go over there and see what's going on, just because what type of wrestling podcasters would we be if we did not make a trip to Japan at some point and get the lay of the land, especially with their indies in a state where they're currently thriving post-pandemic.
Yeah, and the first indie we're going to talk about, it has a reputation as a deathmatch promotion. The reality is that it has a lot else going for it. But the person we're going to talk to really has stepped out as this international deathmatch superstar. Do you want to give our first guest the intro, Kai?
Yes, I was super excited to sit down and talk to Drew Parker about his experiences in Japan, working for Big Japan, which is an incredibly prominent and a company that is full of history in the Japanese indies per se, and his experiences there. And not only just his experiences with Big Japan, but his experiences working the Japanese independent scene for the past couple of years in general. So let's get going. All right, Drew. How's life been treating you in Japan?
Hello. It's been treating me like 14, 13 hours ahead of everyone else. So I'm a step ahead of the competition.
Well, that's good. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day and this crazy time difference to speak with Kevin and I about your adventures over there. And it's really kind of awesome because being over there has afforded you some really cool opportunities to work with some pretty awesome deathmatch legends. Like I saw you had matches with like Abdullah Kobayashi, Jun Kasai, Yuki Ishikawa. You've worked Takeda frequently. It's just, how is it working with those guys? Because they're like
it was weird when I first arrived, because all that I'd ever watched on like YouTube for hours on end was like Big Japan and Freedoms and FMW videos. But then like as the years have slowly gone on, it's turned into like, well, I've seen them more than I've seen my family, for one. I hang out with Abdullah Kobayashi on all of the tours, and he always looks after me and checks the ingredients on food to see if it's vegan and stuff like that. But yeah, it's weird. The transition was even weirder from like, oh, these are like my senpais, these are my seniors, to like, oh, I just hang out with these dudes during the week now when we don't even have shows. Yeah, it's very strange.
But it works, right? It's good to have those sorts of relationships with these people who you're going to be engaging in these very intense matchups with, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And like, that was a big worry, because I remember in the UK and in the US, you get like quite the strong bonds with like the other deathmatch dudes, more so than like if you have a normal regular match with someone. The bonds you have with like the deathmatch wrestlers seems to be a little bit stronger because of like the increased risk. So then I worried about that coming over here. Would I be able to like make those similar strong bonds again? Like, would it be different because I've like looked up to them? But no, it's very much similar in that respect. Even the Japanese dudes between themselves, the bond's very real. You can tell.
And it's interesting because you went head first into this, and you certainly didn't debut there. The first time I saw you, it was probably like a Progress show or something like that. But you were
very
much. What'd you say? I think
you poor soul.
Poor soul. So that was the beginning of my familiarity with you, and then like
not only just changing continents, but I mean, as far as I know, you weren't at least headlong into this deathmatch style. I don't think I'd seen you work on No Holds Barred match before that. And then here you are, just completely immersed in this. Now, obviously, you know, you're a fan of it, had been watching it forever, as you spoke of, but was there ever a moment where you're like, am I really doing this? Like, what am I thinking going into this new environment and having to learn the language and the culture and also be immersed in this vicious deathmatch promotion? Well, it's not all death matches in the promotion, but that's certainly a big part of what you've been doing.
Yeah. So it's come to the point now. I've been here for almost 3 years, and I've spent more of my deathmatch career in Japan than I have outside of Japan now, which is really strange. I think I did like two and a half years in the UK, and then like a couple of America trips, but that was it. And now I'm like at 3 years here, and I somehow outweigh my time in an English speaking country doing death matches, which is so strange. But yeah, the deathmatch scene in the UK, it's got a little bit better now, but it wasn't what it is now 2 or 3 years ago. There's like Rise now, Big Joe, Clint Margera, Danny Darko, people like that. Then like 3 years ago, it was like there was no deathmatch shows. It was just you'd get the occasional no DQ at Progress. TNT Wrestling do like little ones here and there. I don't know. I feel like coming to Japan was the most natural step. But then learning the language sucked because it's like, oh. So, you know, like the hardest languages for English speaking people to learn is like Mandarin, Korean, and Japanese because they just like flip everything. All the rules are different. So having to learn Japanese names for all these stupid items and weapons that we use, it was a mission.
Well, that, and then it's not only a different language, but there's different sets of syllabaries, and you have kanji, and it's this huge process and this huge undertaking. So you're learning another set of quote unquote letters to go with this new language.
I know. There's 3 alphabets. I learned the first one. I thought I was home dry. And then there were 2 more, and they were all more difficult than the last one. It's been such a mission. It's felt like one long test to see if I actually want to make it here or not. And I'm making it so far.
Well, I saw I think you put a clip or retweeted a clip of you doing the backstage interview at Big Japan. And you were, I mean, I maybe know 2 words in Japanese, but it sounded like you kind of had a pretty good handle on it. So the effort shows.
I've got the whole world fooled, Kevin. I could be saying anything in those promos.
That's what wrestling is.
I could be saying anything in those promos, and the West would have no idea otherwise. Everyone here tells me that my Japanese is good, but you never know for sure. Because I remember when I first arrived, and I knew like good morning, and then red, blue, and white, just like the words for red, blue, and white. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, your Japanese is so good." And I was like, "Yeah, it is." Like, yeah, you're right. It is good. And then the more time I've spent here, the more Japanese I've learned, the more I feel like I know so little Japanese, like the reverse of that. So
make it till you make it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. It's intimidating to get into that.
Those comments though. So in like New Japan and places, I think Noah maybe have them as well. They have like translators, like English translators. So whatever you say, they can translate and put it either as like subtitles on the bottom or translate it into the Shupro, like the Wrestling Weekly magazine. But Big Japan doesn't have that. So I felt more pressure to like, if I could be the one foreigner who actually speaks all Japanese in his promos, you know, it shows to the office and it shows to the fans as well. They're like, oh, he's trying. He's not just here to like do 3 months and then fuck off like everyone else does.
Right.
Can I say? Would you rather?
Well, you already did, so we're gonna we're gonna roll a bit.
And for a dime and for a dollar, let's go.
Okay.
And it's really cool too because you were recently over here for GCW Homecoming Weekend, where you defeated Alex Colon for the Ultraviolent title, and you were able to take that back to Japan with you and make some pretty cool defenses over there. One of them against Ishikawa of Battle Arts fame. That's really cool, and you defended against Takeda. Like, how was that to be able to take a title from American soil back to Japan and sort of create a little mini legacy around it in the time you had it?
So I felt dreadful about that because the GCW tag belts were like with Miedo and Ciclope for like 3 years? Like
I think 3 years. And they recently reacquired them.
They got them back like 2 weeks before I arrived in America. So they get their tag belts back, and then 2 weeks after that, I took one of their belts and ran away to Japan to defend it. So the fan response was like 90% positive, and then 10% like this mother is like just taking one of the only belts. I was like, sorry, but yeah, it was cool. I don't know. I think because I had the Big Japan Deathmatch belt, I won that the night before I beat Alex. So then when I came back with 2 belts, I felt like the office was like, oh, he's like actually pretty good now. And so they kind of let me just like wrestle whoever I wanted. For like the GCW belt was like free reign sort of thing. It was like, oh, you can do whatever you want. And then Brett was like, yeah, defend it against whoever you want. So it felt good to have like in Japan, where I feel like I have so little creative power being a foreigner. It felt good to have like a little snippet of, okay, this can be my thing that I can do whatever I want to do with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's value of being able to go back and forth and serve as this intermediary and also add, I mean, we're talking Pro Wrestling Illustrated here, like in that old school sense, lending world class credibility to these championships, but also, as you said before, this idea of kind of being someone who can communicate to both audiences. And a lot of places do have that, I mean, and I won't name names, but apart from Big Japan, there are even some pretty big promotions out there in the, not just in Japan, but outside of the US in general that don't really have that. So, I mean, that I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of why we wanted you to come on here today, because we wanted to know more about Big Japan and what the experience is like working there. And, you're a good way to do that. But I don't know where exactly I was going with that, but I think there's value to you being in that position.
Because obviously there have been a lot of foreigners before in Big Japan. So there was like the CZW war, but then after that, they'd have like Pondo come over, and then obviously Masada was here and stuff like that. But no one's been here as long as me now in this like social media time period and during COVID as well. It's like I've seen everything, and I have the power to tell everyone everything. I just haven't for so long. Like I don't feel like any foreigner that Big Japan have ever brought over have had like the biggest insight, as much as I do right now, which is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure.
I think it's good to have that insight. And, you were speaking on having creative freedom, and Big Japan is infamous for having some very creative matches. Is there any wild and crazy creative match you would love to have in Japan or elsewhere? I mean, we're talking like Rana matches, Scorpion matches, like Firestone death match, like crazy stuff, right?
So we had a big show, maybe like right before COVID really popped off. And it was like Matsunaga was like Mr. Danger. He was like doing the sponsor of the match sort of thing. Like he was going to come back, not to wrestle, just like be there sort of thing. And I think, what did they try to get? They tried to get some animal. I think it was crocodiles again. But then
crocodiles again.
The Japanese WWF was like, no sir, not now. It's not 1997 anymore. And I remember some of the Big Japan office being like, those motherfuckers, like we've already done it once before. I was like, yeah, but it's a different time period. I wouldn't want to do those matches anyway. But is there anything I'd want to do? No, not really. I've done so much now here, and they usually let me do whatever I want.
What are some of the wild, just for people who haven't seen your work over there, what are some of the wilder match types? Because people are used to, the light tubes and surrounding the ring and barbed wire and things like that, which are still very intense. Yeah. But is there
I feel like the most, it's not really that creative, but the most really messed up on, we did like tubes, glass boards, and then like no canvas, which is like obviously been popularized in the States now too. But then like when I was watching as a kid, I was like, I'd seen Jun Kasai and Ito do like all these no canvas matches. Really want to do a no canvas match. And then it came to the Ikitozen finals between me and Ito. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do no canvas. And he was like, everything hurts. Are you sure you want to do it? Like every single bump you're going to take hurts. I was like, yeah, it's fine. This is it. This is my moment. I want to do it. And then we did the match and I got really, really f***ed up and had to go to the hospital afterwards. But It was fun. It was a nice experience in the end.
Maybe not in a rush to do that one again, though.
I did see that you had a razor board death match that you were in with Jun Kasai. How was that?
I feel like so Jun Kasai obviously left Big Japan like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But all the other deathmatch dudes I see like pretty much every week, every 2 weeks, we have like a good repertoire, like maybe not friendship with all of them, but you know, a good relationship. But Kasai, I like never see him because he's at Freedom. So he's like the last remaining deathmatch aura that I'm yet to become friends with, sort of thing. So yeah, that was the Razor boards weren't as scary as just the prospect of working with Jun Kasai.
I can imagine that's a little bit intimidating. He's certainly one of the cornerstones of deathmatch wrestling. Or you could, I feel that way. I don't know if everybody agrees with me or not, but.
No, I'd definitely say so. Especially over here, he like released, so he's already released an autobiography, but then he released a movie, like a documentary on his life, like 1 year ago. And he's like, Freedoms are the only company that have like sold out Korakuen Hall with COVID restrictions. It's just because of Jun Kasai. He's like a superstar over here. Whenever someone asks me what I do, and I'm like, oh, I do deathmatch wrestling, and they're like, what's that? And like, oh, the thing that Jun Kasai does. And then they immediately understand it. He's like next level. Yeah.
I always thought that it was neat too that he was willing to do those deathmatch style matches in promotions that weren't necessarily dedicated or specialized for deathmatch. Like I know he had a fluorescent light tubes match in El Dorado, and I think 2007, and at the time that was just very random and not happening everywhere. So just being able to be the pioneer in the sense of taking it to places where you wouldn't typically see it, I think is what makes it cool too.
And he goes to like DDT. He works for DDT quite a bit, like multiple times a year too. So like, I don't know, everyone wants a piece of Jun Kasai. If he shows up, fans show up as well.
You were recently at DDT as well, right?
Yeah, I work there sometimes with Chris Brooks, who like he's a regular there. I guess you could say he's contracted. I think, yeah, he's like a regular DDT guy, and the fans. Me and Chris look really funny together because he's tall and slender and I'm smaller and I've bulked up a little bit now. So it's like a weird comedy duo. And I think the Japanese fans like the simplicity of, oh, the tall white man and the short white man.
Abbott and Costello or not Abbott, Laurel and Hardy. That's the one.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very easy. I feel like they have the issue sometimes of if two foreigners come over together, you know, like kind of deciphering which one's which at first. Yeah, we've never had that issue. That's fine.
Well, I mean, it's funny, even, and I sort of get why, but in retrospect, like the more I think about it, the less it makes sense. But my wife always used to, and she might kill me if she knows saying this, but she always used to mix up Chris Brooks and Angelico for some reason, because they were both like,
get it.
Lanky blonde guys of a certain skin
swoopy
tone.
Fringe. They've got a swoopy bleached fringe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally get that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. Just funny how that works. So I mean, not to keep harping on this, like being a representative thing, but one thing with Big Japan that maybe creates a little bit of a barrier of entry is, a lot of videos will make their way over here at some point, but like maybe like no English subtitles or commentary. I think some of them do. Is that something that you would potentially be interested in contributing more to, or are you too busy with what you're doing in the ring to even have the time to think about that?
Yeah, that's not even something. They asked me to run the Twitter once. They wanted to start an English Twitter, but I said no. Yeah, I was like, I can't. I feel like if I do that, then I'm settling into like, no, Jun Kasai wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
He's not going to be subtitling anything. You got to fake it till you make it, like we said earlier. I feel like the issue with Big Japan is the streaming service. Like you said, the videos will eventually get over. Like the streaming service is pretty old and stuff like that. And I've tried to tell them, like, just spend a little bit of extra money and get a real VOD, and it'll be worth it. But yeah, I don't know. You can take the horse to water. You can't make them drink, Kevin. That's what I've settled on.
I mean, until about a year and a half ago, the PWI website looked like an old GeoCities webpage until finally we just buckled down and did it. So, it's just because
that's part of the nostalgia, Kevin. That's part of the nostalgia of the PWI website.
Yeah. Having a website that you cannot access on your phone at all. Just
like the good old days. You got to get browser on it. You got to go in your browser.
crazy to think that video on demand is so dominant and it happened so quickly, because when I was a teenager, you would order DVDs from Ring of Honor and like wait at the mailbox for them for weeks. Like there wasn't just instant access to any wrestling you wanted.
Right. That's so great. I feel like I missed I see a lot of the current crop of like wrestlers and then like people just involved in wrestling too. Of like, oh, the tape trader days and all this. I was like trading PWG DVDs. And I was like, I just went onto YouTube and I found everything, like everything. YouTube in 2010 had everything you could ever dream of.
And that's awesome. It's sometimes crazy to think about how many matches happened in that time period between like 2002 and like 2008 that there's just no record of, because YouTube wasn't a thing till I think 2006. I could be wrong.
I think that's kind of like I wouldn't say the beauty of it. Like sort of that nostalgia feeling of like, oh, you had to be there sort of thing. And then that kind of ties back into the whole Big Japan VOD thing. Like, I kind of like being tucked away in the corner and not everyone is like knowing what I'm doing. But if you try really hard, if you really want to see it, you can, sort of thing. I'm not really bothered about being on TV or whatever.
You don't really run the risk of being overexposed that way. Like sometimes when you're saturating the market, people get very burned out on what you're doing and it isn't as special anymore. So you keep it very close to your chest and special and people appreciate it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I show up at like GCW once a year, once every 2 years. People think I'm really good. Like if you saw all of my matches in Japan, I am not that good. I tried really hard today. That's why.
Everybody needs to know. You're actually coming back in May. You're actually coming back in May. Are you excited for that? Do you have any matches that you would like to have when you're stateside?
Yeah, so I've got the 28th of May is Las Vegas, and then June 4th and 5th are the New Jersey shows. And it sounds really boring because I wrestled Alex last year, but I want to wrestle him again at least once. I've got like more than one match this time, so I've got a chance to mix it up. But I definitely want to wrestle Alex again because I was so jet lagged last time. I like arrived at JFK. So I wrestled at Korakuen. I won the deathmatch belt. Went from Korakuen to Narita Airport. Flew all the way to JFK. Got picked up and then drove straight to the venue. And then as I arrived, like they were getting ready to open the doors for like the show. And I was like still bleeding from my head. And I was like, what's that on your face? I was like, oh no. I already had a cut that was like still bleeding from the match the night before. And everyone seemed to really like that match. So I feel like we could have an even more fun one if I'm not jet lagged and I've got time to actually settle in.
Alex is definitely the bar too, as far as GCW deathmatch is concerned, right? I mean, that's the guy you want.
Yeah. I think he's like top tier, like in the world now, definitely. When I think of like the best deathmatch wrestlers, I think of like in the States, it's like Alex, Ricky Shane Page. I know he doesn't do them anymore, but Ricky. And then in Japan, it's like Takeda Masashi is probably, I think he's like the best in the world now anyway.
It was a treat getting to see him in person at the NGI 6 this year, for sure.
He's like a different level. Like people, he's so scary. He's like one of like I could call him like a close friend at this point. But like once like that bell rings, it's like terrifying. He like something switches in his brain. It's terrifying.
I mean, things could be completely different by the time this happens, but of course we had John Wayne Murdoch win the Ultraviolent title over WrestleMania weekend. So he's another person, and like you outside the ring, like very like lovable, approachable guy, loves his guinea pigs and his rabbits, and then he gets in the ring and he's a maniac. So if you wanted to have to travel with that belt again, you could go through him. That's another option in May.
I definitely would. I've got a chance to repeat history because I'm challenging for the Big Japan Deathmatch belt right before I leave.
Oh wow!
Like, I could just do the same thing all over again. If I do that every year, that's like a pretty good career I'm setting up for myself.
You have to like every summer. Down to the cut in the same spot on your forehead when you land.
Yeah, exactly. I need to tell Brett to book a show the day after I win the belt just to fully lean into it.
Sounds good. Well, we know you're busy. We're winding down our day here. You're getting yours started. But before we let you go, and we'll let you plug anything you want to plug. Kai, is there anything else you want to ask Drew before we part ways here?
Nope, I really just appreciated nerding out over some Japanese deathmatch wrestling with you for 30 minutes. It was a good time, Drew. Can't wait to
Thank you.
see
I
you today.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, it's time, Drew, to plug anything you want to plug, whether that's Big Japan related, your own social media, any other projects. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram at Drew Parker 341. Support Big Japan Pro Wrestling. Support Game Changer Wrestling. Yeah, that's about it. I don't do much with my life. I'm a very boring person. I've got nothing else to plug.
All right. Well, stay safe out there, and thanks again for doing this.
Thank you, guys.
That was a delightful conversation. Drew is very violent in the ring, but couldn't have been a nicer guy. Enjoyed talking to him.
You know that in my experience, that really seems to be the case. I don't think I've met too many deathmatch wrestlers that are not the nicest humans to walk the face of the earth, which is just such an interesting juxtaposition when you consider how like artfully violent they can be in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a bit of a worry for their opponents if it's this really angry, mean person, and then also has access to weapons and is sanctioned in their use. That would be a little bit terrifying.
So it's not method acting? Is that what you're saying?
Or maybe it is method acting, but like they just
perhaps, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get on the other side of the coin. You talked in the intro about the blending of styles that is modern wrestling and how much is taken from Mexico and Japan. And appropriately enough, Ultimo Dragon founded promotion, Dragon Gate, which PWI has not covered nearly enough in the magazine. I will admit that's not something I knew a lot about. So I wanted to bring on one of our photographers who shoots Dragon Gate and some other promotions for us to talk about taking photographs over in Japan and also just what is so great about Dragon Gate. So a great little primer coming up here with Issa Marie.
All right, Issa, thank you for being here with us tonight for us, tomorrow morning for you. We're on different days. Appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much for having me. You know how excited I am about pro wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had been following your work for a little bit on social media before this, but in recent months, you've been doing some photography for PWI. You're currently living in Japan and going to all sorts of different shows. There's some cool photos coming up. There were a lot of great ones in our April and May issues. How did you get started taking photos? And I know this predates you being in Japan, but how'd you get started taking photos at wrestling events like this?
It was because I was traveling to Japan to see Kenny Omega become the 66 IWGP heavyweight champion at the time. So back in 2018, it was when Okada, after wrestling Namtaku, Okada challenged Kenny for the title to happen, for the match to happen at Dominion. And I was like, I need to go see this. At the time, I only had plans to do two things wrestling related because I was stationed in Germany at the time. I was going to go back to the States for CEO and the New Japan show, and I was going to do the first wrestling cruise. I had no plans of doing anything else, but when the challenge came about, I'm like, okay, Kenny is winning the title at Dominion, so I need to have a way of capturing this. So I bought this camera. It was a Sony at the time. And things didn't turn out so well because Sony and Apple products just don't get along that quite well, and at least in my opinion, or it could be operator error. So I knew nothing about photography, but I managed to capture some photos that caught some people's attention. No photography experience, no nothing. So I was so upset and I was like, screw it, I'm not wasting my time with this camera. And then I went in and actually exchanged it and got a Canon because at the base exchange, they told me, oh, it's a lot easier to manage, especially if you're a first time person taking photography and whatnot. I was like, cool, okay, no problem. I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So I was like, okay, I hate that everything is so automatic. I need control of this camera. In YouTube, I found a video of this man named James Musselwhite. Mind you, at this point in time, I really don't know who he is, and I didn't know that he was going to be the main photographer for All In. So he has a tutorial as well as this amazing Portrait of a Wrestler YouTube page, which people should check out, especially if you want to do anything with photography. So much information. And he also has the Muscle White photography IG account. And he literally explained to me how my camera works because his wife used the same camera that I had. So he literally did a whole tutorial and said, oh, okay, these are the things. This is how you set up your back button focus. And these are the things that you want to do. This is the primary settings you want to have in your camera. So I was like, cool, this guy is amazing. And then I went to fast forward to All In, which is where I caught the eye of Brandy and Cody and other wrestlers because of some photos that I had taken at the time. I actually did not meet James until Double or Nothing at Starcast. So it was almost a year to the date after all of this. And the first thing I said to him is like, man, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, I've been able to just keep doing what I'm doing in the sense of taking photos, capturing this worldwide wrestling tour that I'm in. So throughout the time, he just kept giving me advice, letting me know, hey, these are the things that would work best. This is what I would do differently. So he's been coaching and mentoring me in some ways, along with Speedy, also who's another amazing photographer, and also Steve Wright, who has not only made some opportunities available for me, but also spent some time. All three of them have spent some time, taking time out of their busy schedules to answer any questions I have, to help me with what I'm doing. And at no point in time did I ever think or believe that, hey, this is what I want to do on a regular basis. All I wanted was, if I have media access, I can bring my camera in and I can continue to capture this amazing journey that for the World Tour, the Kenny Omega World Tour, which lasted 18 months before I got deployed. But I just wanted to capture some special moments of that. That's all I wanted to do. It was never meant to do anything beyond that.
Wow. So that's just wild to me. So first of all, you decided that you were going to, like, I'm going to this, what's going to be a really transformative, important match at Dominion. You know, it was pretty apparent Kenny was going to win the title. And of course that set so many different things in motion in Japan and here, ultimately, helped propel him to the top of the PWI 500 that year, by the way. And then from there you decide, like, I have to document this. You look up a tutorial for the second camera you have, and it just so happens to be this very accomplished wrestling photographer. Is that right? Like this sounds like kismet or fate. It's really an amazing story.
Yes, it was. And this is how I introduced myself to James when I saw him at Starcast for Double or Nothing. So Steve had actually brought me over because they had given me media access at the time. So Steve brought me over and he was like, hey, I want you to, take photos of this because I want you to put some things in practice. And I just happened to, because I'm so short, Steve asked them, hey, can she just go in front of you? It's not going to block anybody's view because everybody's so much taller than I am. So you're shooting over my head. And James goes like, yeah, of course. And then all of a sudden I heard the voice and I'm like, I know that voice. So I just like peek back, turn around and I'm like, you're James Musselwhite. And he's like, yes. And he gave me this look like, why are you so excited saying my name? And I'm like, dude, thanks to you, I've kept on with this photography thing. You taught me how to use my camera. Thank you so much. And we, of course, laughed about it and then afterwards talked a little about it. And ever since, we've maintained communication and contact. And while I was deployed, he actually did a portfolio review on some photos of mine. Feedback, which was amazing to me. So I was deployed from October of 2019 to about to October of 2020. And then I transitioned to Japan. I got here on the 1st of December. And when I arrived to Japan, it's COVID world. So there's no going out. There's no shows. We're not on a base-based lockdown, but we can't go anywhere to include within the Tokyo area. So about 22 months passed and I haven't taken a single shot. I haven't done anything. I haven't used my camera in 22 months, but I was keeping up with James's Portrait of a Wrestler page, his account where he does like the 4 photos in 1 minute showing you the different lightings. So here at home, all I would do is like, okay, so he's saying these are the settings he would use. So I would just go and put them in my camera and say, okay, now I know how to do this myself. That way I don't have to, while I'm in the show, look up the video to try to figure out. So I kept learning from him. I kept learning the same thing, like I said, from Speedy, who also answered questions in his Instagram of people that have, hey, how do you get this specific look when you're doing photography, whether it's for the indies or AEW. So I would be paying attention. And there were times that I was like, hey, I hope you don't mind. Let me ask you a question. If it's this camera, will these settings work? And he just, like I said, all three amazing men taking their time to just teach me things that has made my photography better.
Well, you know, and a lot of that too is you went out of your way to establish yourself as being a coachable individual that these established professional photographers could cultivate talent within you. You know, it's one thing. It's like you have to be willing to learn how to fish, right? And because you were willing to learn how to fish, these people have been more than willing to teach you how to catch the biggest fish and the best fish and the shiniest fish and how to fillet your fish properly, right? I don't know how fishing and photography intertwine, but I guess they do. And I just think that's really neat. And you should definitely take a ton of credit for just being a very coachable, enthusiastic person that has been able to thrive in the environment.
Yeah, and that actually is has a lot of truth to it, because I have seen, and you see it everywhere, where people all of a sudden is like, hey, I want to start taking photos and whatnot, and a lot of them that I have seen, and even here in Japan, because a lot of every person in Japan can be a photographer, because in Japan there's no restrictions as to what camera, as long as you're not blocking anybody's view. That is the rule. Don't block anybody's view, and you can have the biggest telephoto zoom lens in the world, and you are just there with that big camera. But don't block anybody's view. Do not become disruptive. If they tell you to get up, you should be able to get up with your equipment, or it's going to get broken type situation. And people have their style, and people say, okay, this is my style of doing things, and I don't want to say that they're not as receptive as I was, but because they have established their own style, they want to keep on with what they are doing. I, on the other hand, just like with everything in life, teach me everything, because while I may not do much with it, maybe I'll have an opportunity later on in life to pass on this knowledge that I have, which is the way I treat my job. In my job, without going too much detail into what I do and who I am in the military, I became like at one point, even the point of failure for one particular function of the things that keep the military tied together, along with, the family and the rest of the world. So I held, or in somehow still hold, a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that information. And as soon as I stopped doing that job, the first thing I did is just pass it on to as many people as I could, because I did not want that knowledge to die with me. And the same thing is when I get information, when somebody teaches me something, immediately I just want to pass it on to somebody else, because I don't want that knowledge to die just with, a little core group of people and not go anywhere. And James and Speedy and Steve are the same way. The knowledge that they have, they want to share it with everybody, so that this beautiful art can continue to be a thing, because there's nothing greater, honestly, than still photography. Just being able to capture that special single moment where it's going to be cemented forever, of people's reaction, a moment in time, the emotion, just all of it. This is why I call pro wrestling my telenovela. It's my soap opera in real life, in real time.
And you speak of capturing these special moments, and I think it's really, you were able to start documenting for Dragon Gate at a very interesting time. In 2018, Ultimate Dragon returned to the promotion. There was a little bit of restructuring. Then in 2019, they had their big 20th anniversary celebration. They've established working partnerships with like DDT, New Japan, Noah. There's so much meat on the bone that's happening now for like the first time since, I would venture to say, like the late 2000s. So with that being said, what are some of the most special moments you've been able to capture photographing their events?
Oh, everything. To me, the key moment was Shun Skywalker actually pushing Dragon Dia into Diamante on their Máscara contra Máscara match at Korakuen Hall. I actually happened to be sitting on the side. Diamante's back was to me. And the moment Dia came into the ring and just opened his arms and just kind of like stop him, because Shun's mask at this point in time was 3/4 of the way off. And essentially Dia is pleading with Diamante to just stop, to not even go near him, to actually take him. And Shun just in the process pushes Dia. And Diamante just grabs him, does the vuelta finale, and pins him the 1, 2, 3. Capturing that moment, capturing Shun's emotion, capturing Diamante's reaction, because even in his face, he was like, what happened? Everyone in that match, everyone was assuming that Dia Inferno was losing the mask. You can tell anybody that that there was any chance that Dragon Dia, that Diamante, or Shun Skywalker were losing that match. But throughout the match, it was the whole, hey, these are, this is what may happen. This is what may happen, because Shun, the singles match that Shun and Diamante had on September 26th, unfortunately, I was in, where was it? I was in Hawaii, TDY, so I couldn't be there for that. And the way Diamante dominated Shun when the Máscara contra Máscara came about, I was like, man, there is a chance that Shun may lose his mask. What is going on? I was in the audience, and you can't say anything. You can't use verbal, but we all use the gasp. So you make natural sounds that are not so verbal. And I literally, that moment, I yelled, Nande! Which is why in Japanese, because, the people around me, it just instinctively came about. But again, capturing those key moments throughout time. And then later, the emotion of Dragon Dia literally crying because he had lost his mask. A masked man, mask is the most important thing. I grew up watching Mexican pro wrestling. So I was watching CMLL, I was watching AAA growing up, and I know all about the mask and what it means to a professional wrestler. And losing it, it's essentially you're losing your identity. You're losing who you are. And just being there for that, I still feel it.
That's so cool. And obviously Dragon Gate is this really unique promotion in that there are the strong lucha influence by way of Ultimo Dragon, and just it's part and parcel of it, but also it's this strong story element and factions, and it's a really unique promotion for anybody who hasn't seen it before.
Factions, you mean dragon units?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So for the uninitiated, or for the semi-uninitiated, such as I would include myself, unfortunately there, Issa, talk to us about like the appeal of this promotion, like what it offers. If someone is maybe only used to WWE, AEW, maybe they've seen New Japan and some indies, but they're coming into this really different space with Dragon Gate, what can they expect to see?
Everything. Dragon Gate. So when it comes to how I describe wrestling promotions, I say DDT is your one-stop shop, because in DDT you can see everything. You have women wrestling, you have it all. You have the comedy, you have the compelling story, the emotional story, you have the wrestling, you have the different types of characters, you have pheromones, and that is it's super funny, but you have to be okay and be acceptance of what their current character is doing. But Dragon Gate has the core emotional attachment, the long lineage, the extensive storytelling, the ties, the history that not many companies have the ability to do. See, you have the rich history between your Okada and your Tanahashi and Okada and Naito, but there is so much time in between that has spent. While in Dragon Gate, you find yourself with people like Yamato, who essentially has just moved around through a lot of the units throughout his time. And he still has that rich history tie-in. His match against Kai for the title at Final Gate, it's after the no ropes match, that was supposed to be it, the end of it. Everything is done. But yet, no, we're still not done. So you have all of the time that Kai bought in so that he could, finally get his revenge against Yamato, because according to him, Yamato, was an irresponsible person who just was out for himself, who used to literally make everyone else responsible for him without a care of how that affected anybody else. So those relatable stories of why they would turn on somebody is one of the main appeals I have with Dragon Gate. And it comes across on the network, on stream, on TV, on DVD, whatever you watch it on, even in their YouTube channel, which now they're posting from their house shows, 1 or 2 marquee matches. And if you haven't done so, please go out there and start looking at them, because it does give you like a sense of where the company's going, where the storylines are going. The other thing that is so appealing that I love about the promotion is how do-it-yourself they are. So the first show I went to see live was on September 6th of 2021. And this is, at this point in time, I had been brought. So I used to be a casual Dragon Gate fan. Eita is one of my favorite wrestlers. I met him. I actually found out about Eita in Mexico because I used to watch a lot of Mexican pro wrestling. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. He's so awesome. And back then he had the blonde hair and so it was awesome. And also he later became part of Los Perros del Mal. And I was like, that was my faction. My favorite wrestler, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Don Pedro Gallo, Perro Gallo, father. Because I grew up with him, and just his style to me was amazing. I just love it. A true heel in all sense of the word, and I loved it. So I got to go to this show, and the first thing, without not knowing much now in today's world about the company, and I was just like, what is this chaotic mess? What the heck are they doing? We're in COVID, and they're finding ways of integrating the fan base just by way of like, when they have us move because somebody's going to do either a tope suicida or a tope con giro. They're like, have us move. And then the next thing I find out is that I have Dragon Dia sitting on my seat with my camera on hand, just like playing off on it. So just this fan service, because it feels like a family. It feels like you are a part of their family. Whenever you go to a show and they recognize you on the crowd, the first thing is like second of great character, wave and whatnot. I took my boss and her kids. So Zebras made my boss's son's day. Like they integrated him as part of the show. Kai stood in front of him and like showed him the title. And poor Lando was kind of like shocked because he didn't know what to do. So he started waving at Kai. And SB Kento comes to the side and goes to him and he's like, yeah, and shows him how to clap. And then Landon got all excited, started clapping. And then the rest of the guys were like encouraging him to like, yeah, keep going, keep clapping, because they saw this little boy that felt so out of the element there. But at the same time, he felt so welcomed by it. And that is one of the main things I loved about the company.
The rich history too that you touched on with the Dragon units, and like knowing that someone like Yamato is currently in a unit with Kagetora, and they were like part of the original Dragon Gate dojo, and it's just like that's coming upon 10-15 years of wrestling history that they're still able to integrate and make fans connect with is just absolutely incredible.
Yes, and not only that, it's the sheer talent of the wrestlers, because you can see in other promotions where you have wrestlers who you realize that they're brand new and they're putting them out there and they're putting them on TV and giving them TV time because you learn as you go. But to me, just that dojo system, the talent, I mean, I got to see Hayakawa debut. I got to see Fujiwara. I got to see the Ihashi brothers. I got to see Saito debut. And I am looking at these guys that are, a year into their because I also saw them when they do the exhibition matches. So the Dragon Gate Future, when they start doing their exhibition matches. So I had seen some of their exhibition matches all the way to October, and I see them all debut in late October and November, and I'm just like, wow, they are having matches that are not a debut match, a true match. Like, this is a well-rounded wrestler who has the ability to do his part to make this match a great match. Talking about that, they haven't seen it because it's also in YouTube, the match between Diamante and Fujiwara and SB Kento. That kid is just amazing. He is my favorite future, and he just meshes well with every single one. And the chops, Yamato has, he's giving Yamato a run for his money, because I think those chops are just that much harder than Yamato's.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible. And it's really interesting to look back and see the amount of talent that the Dragon Gate Dojo has churned out over the years. Well, it's not a massive list per se, but the names on it are certainly worth knowing. I mean, Akira Tozawa was a student of the Dragon Gate Dojo. So it's just crazy.
Shingo
really
Takagi.
Shingo Takagi.
Yep.
Oh yes, two of the pillars of Dragon Gate. One of them, I say that, and this is just my personal opinion. I have feelings at times that if you are not a core product of a particular company, while you are given opportunities, those opportunities may not necessarily give you the time to tell your story as champion or as whatever it is that you're doing. And they don't consider the amount of talent that people are bringing from the outside, and they turn them into characters. So my thing is always, if they're happy with what they're doing, if they're getting paid well, more power to them. But still going back, because I still go back and watch a lot of stuff. Last night I was just randomly watching different Prime Zone shows, just because I was like, oh, I forgot about this. I even tweeted about, I wonder what Food Coordinator Dragon is doing, because I just happened to select the video where Yamato was wrestling as Food Coordinator Dragon with his apron, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? Great, though. Just came up with some aprons for bulk orchestra, and I was like, okay, maybe they can get together and have a barbecue. I want an invite to that barbecue, by the way.
It's funny.
Yeah,
there's like this silly side to it, and drama, but there's a lot of different elements that come together. And am I wrong in saying there was sort of a reset a couple of months ago? So the units will change periodically. Some, they'll have their time, and then a new one will come together. And I mean, Dragon Gate's not unique in that regard, but there seems to be like this, almost like a story cycle, not a season. Am I wrong in thinking that?
You're not wrong, because they are changing where the company is going. When you think of somebody like Shun Skywalker, you thought that he would be because of by the way of how he came about. Even though I've actually mentioned how you could tell there were some cracks in his "I am so wholesome, I am too good of a persona" type person. That he just went from being the most wholesome, and by the way, if you've ever met him or you have the opportunity to meet him in a setting where he is able to interact with fans, he is one of the most welcoming and just amazing and wholesome human beings you'll ever meet. The fact that he actually recognized me when I did the first signing with them and realized who I was from the content that I was putting out on Twitter, and realized that my Nihongo is non-existent. So he immediately switched over to Spanish to talk to me, because he knew that was the best way he was going to communicate with me. Just amazing. And not just him. That's another reason why I love this company. The UT, even Yamato has given a try in English and Spanish with me. All of them have made a point to try their best to find a way to, at least say something to me. In a language that I am easily able to communicate in. But yeah, So going back to Shun, he went from being this wholesome, caring guy who was doing everything in his power after losing the title to ensure Masquerade was doing well, that all of it, all things were great in Masquerade. And then he sacrificed Dragon Dia because he had been talking about that a man, if he lost his mask, he would lose himself. And the mask was everything to him. And the man without the mask would no longer be in existence. And you can start seeing how he became very cynical and how he became very manipulative to the point where his teammates didn't even know what to do with him. And to transition from being this guy who was in a pseudo feud with Diamante, that was my favorite feud. If I just wanted those two to continue to go at it and culminate in a Mascara contra Mascara match. But then I also said, you know what would even be better? If those two were even a tag team. And I made that comment back in October of 2021. And I said, these two as a tag team would even be better. I want them to be two people who fight forever, but also fight together. And at one point, when the time is due, go their separate ways and come back together and finish that story, because there's so much to both of them. And ends up in Zebrats. Who would have thought that out of everybody? But then you look at who's in Zebrats, and you have his Hyosuke Santa Maria, the man that made it possible for Shun to escape the cage in 2019, which allowed him the opportunity to, in his terms, leave Mochizuki Dojo, which he should have just asked for it instead of making everybody go through what he made him go through, and become his own man. And then you have High-End as a unit. High-End was you had last year Yamato being the champion. You had them be the top class unit, and now they're kind of trying to figuring out their way once again. You have now the gold class that took that title away from High-End with the concept of Minorita, who is, the smaller version of a pro wrestler. I grew up with watching, Mascarita Sagrada, and I grew up with watching Octagoncito. So I am very familiar with the concept, but Hayakawa has been able to take it to another level to integrate in the match, and the man is stealing the show. You have the Independence. Eita lost the unit that he mirrored after him, and now he is doing. He's got he has the GHC Junior Heavyweight title in Noah, and he's also part of Los Perros del Mal de Japón. But here in Dragon Gate, you start seeing things of him that you weren't going to see before. Teaming with Strong Machine J, those two, and not much has been shown on TV, but I've actually had the pleasure to see them team twice in tag team matches, and those two have an amazing and great chemistry as team. Hopefully, Eita find his footing back in Dragon Gate, and Strong Machine J is part of that because they do make a great team. And of course, Maria, because that's another interesting story, that forever love story, but also the dominant position that Eita took when it came to Maria, and Maria just succumbing to all of that, and that's just gold. And Natural Vibes is just the feel good unit that you just want to be part of. You want to get up with them, you want to cheer them on. Having somebody like Jackie Funky Kamei in your team who is all heart, amazing wrestler, all heart. UT has the ability to do things that most people can't even do right now, and he can get you from the air, he can get you from the ground. He's just an amazing, well-rounded pro wrestler. When the Big Boss Shimizu's time comes to be a champion, he is going to be an amazing champion. And KZ, his time is coming soon. I have a feeling that his time is coming soon, very, very soon. But yeah, they're going through a process of kind of not a reset, but an involvement of the characters and what they are and where the stories are going and what they're doing. Look at Dragon Dia and Dia Inferno coming back. Now they're a team. They were eternal rivals, and all of a sudden now they have become this well-meshed team. And by the way, I think that the team that is going to take the titles away from them is Shun and Diamante.
Honestly, one of the things I think has been really cool about this episode is not only have we gotten to learn about everything you do as a photographer when you work with Dragon Gate, when you work with these various Japanese promotions, but you have just provided an excellent entry point for anyone who wants to get into Dragon Gate and wants to become passionate about it and see all these stories unfold. I know sometimes when you have a company that has a very rich history, especially like in Japanese wrestling per se, that it can be a little intimidating to get into, but just listening to you speak so passionately about the topic, you made it very digestible and very fun. And I hope that more people listen to this podcast and really delve into the world of Dragon Gate.
Oh yeah, and for me, it was easy to just kind of go with. Well, I'm a person that just goes with the flow, but as I was getting back into Dragon Gate, and the reason why I essentially just were like, okay, let's give this a chance. So my friend Aram and my friend Dee and Tabla, who's an amazing artist, she does the most amazing art out there, and also Emily Pratt. They've all have been tweeting and talking about Dragon Gate for a while. And I was like, okay, so before Speed Starts Final, I said, you know what? I'm here in Japan. I can't go anywhere. All I can do is watch pro wrestling on TV. I'm literally locked in my house and the base, and that's all I could do. And I was like, well, let me give this a chance. Let me see what is it that they're talking about, why they're so passionate, why they call it a family. I just need to reintegrate myself back into this, because the things that they're saying is the things I want in my pro wrestling. The involvement, the emotion that they're showing when they're talking about the product. That is why I love pro wrestling, because I find an emotional attachment to it with relatable stories, characters, and some of them being, larger than life type thing. So I tuned into the show, and immediately, I was a little lost. I knew who some people were just by being a casual fan on the side. But the first thing I did was reach out to all of them, and I said, hey, girls, okay, explain to me why are we here? What's going on? And all of them just completely, took time out of their schedules to just like bring me up to speed with what has happened. What did I miss from the moment I kind of just stopped watching? Because in 2018, when Shingo Takagi debuted for New Japan, I was like, okay, so Shingo is now here in New Japan. Let me just focus on Shingo in New Japan. So it was one of those things of like, he's no longer there. Okay, I can just continue on over here. Pac went to, in 2019, Pac went to AEW. I was like, okay, so now I got Pac in AEW. So I, kind of like stop paying too much attention. And then that was the time I was doing the Kenny Omega World Tour. So yeah, that was primarily my focus. And they explain it all to me. And also Jay, he does the commentary, the English commentary for Dragon Gate. There's times that I just reach out to him and I'm like, hey, Jay, this is what's happening. What's going on? So he'll go through the list and give me matches and let me know of matches. And on his Twitter account, you actually see that he posts specific matches and the story behind the matches and gives you a little detail. And those were the things that really got to me and to realize, all right, me coming into Dragon Gate, it's not that hard because there is a ton of information. You have Mike and Case who do for Voices of Wrestling, Open the Voice Gate podcast. They also do the reviews of Dragon Gate shows in their page, and a great source of information when it comes to what's going on, talking about the matches. They really do focus on Dragon Gate's bread and butter, the 6-man tags, where the beauty, the synchronization, just the chaotic way that they have the ability to have, even at one point in time, 6 people in the ring, but it all makes sense. So you don't get lost to try to figure out who's doing what, because it's like all 6 men are working together to come together to give you this amazing moment at one point in time in the match and throughout the match. So I find it very, very, very easy to just fall back in and go back to relearn my history to say, okay, this is why this is happening. And that's how I figure out the whole cracks with Shun. So his title match against Kikuta, who's coming back, and I will be there for that match. When, from a viewer's point, you believe that Shun is aggressively attacking Kikuta's shoulder that he had dislocated throughout the match. So that's where I went back and said, this is where Shun started showing that aggressive side. That side he can't control, that side that, is going essentially propelled him to be the man that he is today. He just was doing a great job hiding it well.
So real like long-term storytelling there too, with planting seeds and everything. That's very cool. This has been an amazing conversation, and I think anybody listening to this, if they still don't want to go watch Dragon Gate, I don't understand where they're coming from. We want to give you a chance
to help you, because you just got the Dragon Gate 411 there.
Right. Absolutely. You've given a great primer for our listeners. We're going to give you a chance to plug anything you want to plug. But first, Kaia, do you have anything else you want to ask Issa before we part ways here today?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I just honestly, it was just such a treat to sit here and have a conversation with you about a company with such rich history, and to hear you speak so passionately about this company that you provide photographs for. It was just a great experience. It was an excellent way to spend a Friday evening. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. So is there anything you would like people to check out that you would like to promote? If you would like to give your social media handles out for people to follow you, the floor is yours.
Well, I've mentioned a lot of them again, and it's not much for myself because mine is the easiest one. Is at Issa Marie, both on Twitter and Instagram. But like I said, if you are a fan, or if you are an up and comer, whether it's trying to be professional or personal, give Steve Wright and give James Musselwhite a follow, along with James's YouTube channel, Portrait of a Wrestler, and his photography studio account at Musselwhite Photography, because again, those are three of the most amazing sources when it comes to learning about the beauty that is photograph, especially with the rich amount of work that James puts out there on his channel. It's just the best learning tutorial if that's what you want to do in life. When it comes to Dragon Gate, like I said, following Aram at Aromi D. The handles are escaping my mind right now, but at Tapla, amazing artist, and also tweeting all things about Dragon Gate. And Emily, I believe hers is Emily of Pratt. The Voice Gate account, and the individual accounts for Case and Mike. Amazing sources. Jay, never forget to follow Jay. He does the English commentary for Dragon Gate. He puts on a ton of information. He is one of the deepest and richest Dragon Gate fans, and also now working with the company that I know that can essentially answer most, if not all, questions out there. Dragon Gate's YouTube channel, after every house shows, they're putting up 1 to 2 matches, amazing matches, for having all of the fun in the world. And if you have it, if you want to really check out the product, want to get into it, don't forget to subscribe to at Dragon Gate Live, their network. They're a little bit more expensive than most of the networks. However, the shows and what you get for your money it doesn't even compare. It's just amazing having the ability to be able to watch things from like 2002 and 2007 and 2009. That's how I've been able to go back and look at all of this and start tying a lot of things together. So I want to promote everybody else's stuff, but if you want to check out, what I do and how, when I post photographs, again, at Issa Marie, both on IG and Twitter.
Okay, Issa, this has been terrific. Thank you so much.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me. I told you that I was going to at times just go around and around and just get long-winded when it comes to talking about pro wrestling. And it's just because I love it. And it is my favorite telenovela.
You know, it was such a delight to have Issa on to speak of her experiences working for Dragon Gate, which is kind of undergoing a little bit of a revitalization currently since they did their restructure. I think it's really awesome. I think that they're definitely growing some amazing new talent with Fujita and Dragon Dia. It's such an awesome company that has continued to evolve and change with the times. And I love to see it thriving. And I love to see women thriving in wrestling, like maybe not just as wrestlers, but women in all of the roles, women as commentators, women as ring announcers, women working on the production staff, female referees, and female photographers, because there's still substantially more men in wrestling photography than women, but the women who are there certainly have a lot to bring to the table. So it's great to speak to her and get some insight into her experiences, especially working in Japan and how different it is from photographing an event in the United States.
Totally. She does such great work. And worth noting too, that, you know, she came at this from this, I'm a fan and I just want to show what I love about this. It wasn't about someone who went to photography school and that's all great. Like if you can go and get a degree and have this very mathematical kind of approach up front, that's awesome. But she just learned it as she went because she wanted to take these pictures. And then, you know, before you know it, you can go in PWI magazine, you can find her photos, and I'm very grateful that she will do freelance work for us and, you know, kind of have some feet on the ground in Japan. We're running a little long here today, but as always, want to remind people to go to pwi-online.com for all things Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Kaia, what would you like to plug before we wrap up today?
Just the basics. You can find me on social media. My handle on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of it is at Kaia MCK, so KAIAMCK. I have some fun trips coming up, so hopefully there'll be some cool content from those. Just trying to get out of the house a little bit, get out of my cage. I feel like I've been in my cage for like 4 months, so I'm so excited to be back on the road, even if it's just taking in the scene at this point. So stay tuned for more adventures from me.
Awesome. That's exciting. I'm glad you're getting out and, you know, continuing to travel places and do things like that. I know how much you missed it when you weren't able to. What are we doing next time?
I think we're actually going to take a little bit of a field trip to wrestling school. Isn't that going to be great? It's going to be so fun. It's such a huge part of independent wrestling is going to wrestling school. And not everybody necessarily takes that avenue, right? There are so many different ways people become involved and excel in this business, but it would be hard to argue that wrestling school is not a huge step for a lot of people. So why not take a look and go see what wrestling school is all about? Maybe let's talk to some of the top trainers out there today.